She didn't argue when they told her to leave, just grabbed her duffel bag, nodded once, and walked across the deck alone. No rank defended her. No officer spoke up. Then, as the launch crew turned their backs, the ocean shifted. One by one, ships in. The carrier group adjusted course, not toward the flagship, toward her. And suddenly, Noon was looking at command anymore. If you believe respect doesn't need orders, type she walked alone below. The Hannigan had been at sea for 43 days straight. Endless drills, routine patrols, and mounting tensions across the Pacific theater as international traders grew more contested with each passing week. On the flight deck, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Keene stood silently near the aft rail, watching water fold into white foam behind the massive carrier as it cut through Ocean swells. She wasn't loud like the other officers, didn't bark orders or command attention through volume. Her service record was spotless, her performance consistently sharp, but she never seemed to try to stand out from the crowd. And maybe that quiet competence was exactly the problem in a Navy culture that often rewarded visibility over substance. Keene didn't socialize in the wardrobe after duty hours, didn't laugh at the crude jokes that passed for camaraderie among some officers. She consistently stayed after briefings to organize maps and noticed that she hadn't even dropped ensuring the ready room was prepared for the next shift. So when a devastating rumor broke that someone in air operations had deliberately bypassed critical safety protocols, command didn't bother asking detailed questions or conducting thorough investigations. They made assumptions based on convenience rather than evidence. And just like that, Sarah Keene was summoned to the bridge for what will become a career-ending convocation. Lieutenant Commander, you've compromised flight integrity and endangered this entire air wing. You'll be escorted off this ship at the next supply transfer, declared the executive officer with cold finality. No formal hearing, no opportunity for appeal, no presumption of innocence. She didn't even blink at the accusation or attempt to defend herself. Just stood at attention, nodded once with military precision, and replied clearly, "Yes, sir." Understood? Word spread like wildfire across the ship's crew within hers. Most sailors who knew her personality didn't believe the charge for a second. Keene, no possible way she'd cut corners. That woman knows every single call sign on this boat and half the Pacific Fleet. She once caught a navigation error that would have put Jacinto restricted waters. But when Twastern-faced officers met her at the guard deck with folded arms and expressions of cold professionalism, the impossible truth settled in like a weight in everyone's stomach. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Keene was actually having the USS Hannigan in disgrace, and despite all the whispered doubts in private conversations, no one steps forward to speak for her. No one challenged the decision publicly. No one risked their own career to defend someone who had quietly protected Thyers countless times. The ship's quarters filled with uncomfortable silence as crew members avoided eye contact and focused intently on their duties. Chiefs found sudden urgent tasks. Junior officers discovered pressing paperwork that required immediate attention. Even those who knew her best, who had served alongside her for months, who had been fighted from her careful attention, toad-tail, and unwavering professionalism, remained silent when their voices might have mattered most. Sarah had spent years earning respect through competence, dedication, and quiet leadership. Now she would leave with only the dignity she carried herself, walking alone across a deck where she had served with distinction, surrounded by people who respected her but lacked the courage to defend her. Sometimes the most damning indictment of a common structure isn't what it punishes, it's what it allows to happen in silence. There are exits so quiet they somehow rattle louder than 1,000 ceremonialities, leaving echoes that follow ships across oceans. Lieutenant Commander Keene didn't pack much for her involuntary departure, just a single weathered duffel bag containing personal effects, a few books, and folded uniforms that would never again bear the weight of active duty. She walked across the flight deck in full dress uniform, cover positioned perfectly, hair teed back in regulation style, eyes steady and forward focused despite the circumstances. Sailors pretended not to watch her passage, but peripheral vision tracked every step. Chiefs turned away to avoid uncomfortable eye contact. One junior officer visibly tightened his jaw, but didn't move from his position or speak the words that might have changed everything. The late afternoon sun reflected harshly off polished deck plating. Jet engines rumbled beneath the steel flooring, creating vibrations that traveled through boot soles and into bones. A small, rigid, inflatable boat waited near the carrier's starboard side, gently rocking in the ocean's serenal rhythm, ready to transport her to a supply vessel that would carry her away from the only life she had known for 15 years. She stepped toward the waiting craft with measured calm, shoulders square, maintaining military bearing even in the moment of professional destruction. A few crew members muttered quietly, "He's getting exactly what she deserves." Others simply stared in uncomfortable silence, processing the surreal scene of watching competence punished while incompetence often received protection. Then, without any announcement or explanation, something unprecedented began to happen across the carrier strike group. The Usler, a guided missile destroyer positioned 2 nautical miles west of carrier, adjusted its heading by 6, a subtle but unmistakable course correction that had no apparent tactical purpose. Nobody in the immediate vicinity noticed the change at first, focused as they were on the Drummond folding on the flight deck. But then the USS Roy, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer known for maintaining precise formations, followed suit, executing a tighter turn that angled its bow closer to the carrier's rear quadrant. On the flight deck, one signalman monitoring routine communications dropped his headset in confusion. "What the hell is happening out there?" Then a third vessel adjusted course. This time, the Smallgrave, the supply cruiser that hadn't deviated from assigned heading in 11 straight days of operations, and suddenly the ocean itself seemed to conge around them. More ships began subtle course corrections. The U.S. Fitzgerald, the USS Porter, the U.S. Carney, each movement small enough to maintain operational security, significant enough to send a message that transcended official channels. No radio traffic explained the coordinate actions. No fleet commander had issued course change orders. The movements violated no regulations, but they clearly weren't random navigation adjust. Something was spreading across the strike group like a signal transmitted through water itself, a collective recognition that traveled from bridge to bridge without ever being spoken aloud. Crew members through the fleet were remembering moments when Lieutenant Commander Keane had quietly prevented disasters, corrected mistakes, and protected careers without taking credit or demanding recognition. The movement of 17 warships began to tell Astery that no official report would ever capture a story about the difference between command authority and earned respect, between following orders and following leaders worth following. Some naval officers don't salute because regulations require it. They adjust their rudders because they remember hold when no one else possessed the courage or competence to make difficult decisions. The ocean was bearing witness to something unprecedented. An entire fleet silently rejecting an injustice while maintaining perfect operational discipline. If you believe real command is earned in silence and demonstrated through action, Type Keane held the line below. In the carrier's command center, the fleet executive officer barked with growing irritation and confusion. "Why are the outer perimeter ships changing heading? Check communication simi." No one in the communications bay had an adequate answer to provide their increasingly jaded superior officer. The communications chief frantically checked message logs, frequency monitors, and digital traffic records. No broadcasted commands, no tactical alerts, no weather advisories, just routine status check-ins and standard operational commission team. But throughout the strike group, on every bridge of every ship in that carefully coordinated formation, something extraordinary was quietly happening without official acknowledgement. Officers were discreetly glancing at old operational logs stored in personal files, photographs tucked into desk drawers, handwritten notes preserved in uniform pits. One destroyer commander pulled out a carefully folded piece of paper, a detailed field report written by Lieutenant Commander Keane 6 months earlier. documenting a potentially fatal flight software error she had discovered and corrected before deployment. An error that could have cost lives and compromised mission effectiveness. Another ship's captain flipped through personal files and found a malreprimand that Keen had quietly accepted for a junior crew member's costly mistake, never mentioning publicly the error wasn't hers and the blame was misplaced. A third officer recalled the time Keen had worked 18 straight hours to recalibrate navigation systems after a cyber attack attempt, ensuring fleet safety while others slept. Word drew the strike group with the speed and efficiency that only military communicators can achieve. No one spoke the truth aloud through official canals, but understanding spread like wildfire through informal networks. Butane the water. Surrounding the Hannigan, 17 ships in the carrier strike group began to slow their forward regress, rotate their positions, and adjust their headings in a coordinated bolt of naval precision, not by direct order from Fleet Command, not in response to tactical requirements or operational necessities, by collective memory of competence rewarded with injustice, by shared respect for Somianuho had earned loyalty through actions rather than demanding it through rank. The movement was subtle enough to avoid charges of insubordination significant enough to communicate unmistakability with an officer being wrongfully punished. Each ship's bridge crew found perfectly legitimate reasons for minor course corrections, weather patterns, traffic separation, equipment calibration, maintenance schedules. Butanion viewing the formation from satellite imagery would see the truth in entire fleet turning away from flagship authority toward individual conscience. The USS Fitzgerald angled 15 starboard. The USS Ross adjusted speed and bearing. The USS gravely executed a precision turn that positioned its bow toward the departing inflatable boat. Communication statistic across the fleet reported routine status updates while carefully avoiding any mention of the coordinated moves that were reshaping their formation. All stations maintaining operation readiness. No significant traffic or weather concerns. Formation integrity maintained. Technical accurate reports that completely ignored the unprecedented show of solidarity unfolding across square miles of ocean. And aboard the USS Hannigan, a junior deccan finally gathered enough courage to step forward and speak the truth that senior officers were avoiding, see respectfully were the only ship not facing her direction. The observation hung in the air like an accusation forcing everyone present to confront the reality of what was happening around them. The executive officer stood frozen, watching his authority clenched, not through insubordination or direct confrontation, but through something far more powerful, the collective judgment of professional naval officers who recognized competency and integrity when they saw it. His command structure remained intact. His orders were still being followed. His authority was technically unchallenged, but his moral authority had evaporated like morning mist, replaced by the recognition that respect cannot be commanded. It must be earned through actions that demonstrate character under pressure. The fleet had spoken without saying a word. Lieutenant Commandersa Keen sat quietly in the rigid inflatable boat, maintaining perfect military posture with her back straight and hands folded professionally in her lap, displaying the same dignity that had defined her entire naval career. The boat's pilot, a young petty officer who had served under her command during previous operations, asked with reconciled emotion, "Mem, did you know this would happen? Did you expect the fleet to respond like this?" She didn't answer immediately, keeping her eyes focused forward toward the horizon where her uncertain future waited. In the distance behind them, the entire carrier strike group had shifted into an unprecedented formation. Ship bows angled subtly but unmistakably toward her departing craft, enough deviation that anyone monitoring from satellite imagery or aerial reconnaissance could clearly see the coordinated movement. The USS Hannigan remained the last vessel to acknowledge what every other ship in formation had already recognized. The carrier's executive officer watched the transformation of his command structure from the bridge, jaw visibly clenched, professional pride cracking under the weight of collective judgment from his peers across the fleet. He possessed the authority to order immediate course corrections, to demand explanations, to threaten disciplinary action against commanding officers who had participated in the silent protest, but he didn't issue override commands or threats. Because sometimes even flawed leadership recognizes when it has crossed lines that cannot be uncrossed, when authority has been exercised with it wisdom, when power has been used to punish competence rather than protect it. Lieutenant Commander Keene never turned around to witness the extraordinary display of professional solidity unfolding behind her. She kept her eyes forward, focused on whatever came next, carrying herself with the same quiet dignity that had earned respect from colleagues across multiple deployments and operational ascent. The ocean continued its eternal roar, but the silence, emanating from 17 naval vessels, carried more weight than any formal ceremony or official recognition could have provided. Later that evening, after detailed investigation revealed conclusive evidence of her complete innocence, digital forensics proving that protocol violations had been committed by another officer entirely, her personnel file was officially repealed and all charges formally dismissed. But Lieutenant Commandersa Keene was already gone. She had parted without demanding justice, without filing appeals, without waiting for vindication that she knew would eventually come. She left with her integrity intact, and the ocean itself bearing witness to her character. 3 weeks later, transfer requests began flooding personnel officers through the Pacific Fleet. Junior officers requesting assignments to whatever ship would next benefit from her leadership. Senior officers expressing interest in serving under her command. Her involuntary departure had revealed something that formal evaluations and promotion boards often miss: the difference between officers who hold rank and officers who earn respect through daily actions that protect their people and accomplish their missions. The Navy had lost someone irreplaceable in it because of what she had done wrong, but because of an institutional failure to protect what she had done right. 6 months later, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Keene received promotion to full commander, an assignment as executive officer aboard the USS Constitution, a position that came with formal authority, but was truly earned through demonstrated competence under impossibility. The fleet remembered her walk across that deck, and they never forget the lesson that real leadership is about the power to punish. It is about the wisdom to protect those who serve with honor. For more stories where dignity earns more than common endeavor, could subscribe to Iron Heart Stories.